Have you ever driven past a huge, empty plot of land and then, like a year later, there's a whole new neighborhood just standing there? It kind of feels like it appeared out of thin air, right? Well, it's not magic. Behind every single one of those new front doors is this whole complicated world of rules, plans, and permissions. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and see exactly how it all happens.
All right, so let's get into it. To really understand this whole process, we're going to follow a developer. Let's just imagine one, on their journey. You know, from buying that empty field all the way to handing over the keys to a new homeowner. So, how does an empty field turn into a place where people live? Well, it doesn't start with a shovel. It starts with an idea and, you guessed it, a ton of laws.
So our developer has this big piece of land. Where do they even begin? Well, not with construction plans, actually. They start with a really big foundational idea, the government's power over private land. Honestly, it's the first and maybe the biggest hurdle they have to clear.
And that fundamental power is called police power. Now, wait a minute. This has absolutely nothing to do with cops or police officers. It's just a term for the government's basic right to make rules for the common good, to protect public health, safety, and welfare. Think of it like the legal foundation that lets cities and states create all the other rules we're about to get into, like zoning and building codes. Without this one concept, the whole system just wouldn't exist.
Okay, so we've established the government has the authority. The next question is, how do they actually use it when someone wants to build a new community? Well, for our developer, it really boils down to navigating two major and very different state laws.
And probably the easiest way to wrap your head around these two laws is to think of them like this. You've got the blueprint, and then you've got the permission slip. The blueprint is all about the physical stuff, the layout of the community. And the permission slip, that's about getting the state's official okay to actually sell the homes to people like you and me.
And when you break it down, it's actually pretty fascinating how they split up the work. The Subdivision Map Act, that's the blueprint part, is handled at the local level, by the city or the county. They're the ones who care about things like how will these new streets connect to our old ones, or where are the sewer lines going to go? The nuts and bolts of the design. But then you have the Subdivided Lands Act. That's a state-level thing, run by the real estate commissioner. And their job is completely different. It's all about protecting us, the buyers, from things like fraud or being misled. Oh, and check out the thresholds. The MAP Act kicks in with just 2 or more units, but the Consumer Protection Lands Act only applies when you're talking 5 or more.
And you know that consumer protection piece from the Subdivided Lands Act? It is so important. Its main tool is this one document that every single person buying a home in a new subdivision has to get. Let's take a closer look at what that is.
It's called the Public Report. And let's be super clear on this. This is not the state giving a thumbs up and saying, hey, this is a great place to buy. Not at all. It's the state saying, look, here are all the important facts we've checked and verified. The rest is up to you. Now you can make an informed decision. It's 100% about transparency.
The whole journey for this report is very structured. First, the developer submits all their information to the state. They might get what's called a preliminary pink report, which lets them start marketing and taking reservations. But, and this is a big but, no one can sign a final binding contract until the final white report is issued. And here's the real kicker. As a buyer, you have to sign a receipt proving you got it and read it. And the developer has to keep that receipt on file for 3 years. It's a really solid, built-in protection for the buyer.
All right, so our developer's doing great. They've got local approval for their map, and they've got the state's permission to sell. So what now? What kind of community are they actually building? Because it's not always just a simple street of single-family homes, right? A lot of modern developments involve some kind of shared ownership.
And the differences in what you actually own can be huge. Take a condominium, for example. You own the airspace inside your unit. You get your own deed, your own property tax bill. It's yours. But then you look at something like a stock cooperative. You don't own your unit at all. You own a share in the corporation that owns the entire building. That share gives you the right to live there, but there's no separate deed, and there's just one big tax bill for the whole project. Man, understanding that difference is absolutely crucial if you're a buyer.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second. A new development doesn't just exist in a bubble, right? It has to fit into the bigger picture of the entire city or county. And that's where something called zoning comes in. Plus, it has to respect the natural world around it.
I mean, have you ever wondered why your quiet residential street is totally separate from that busy shopping center a few blocks away? Yeah, that's not an accident. That is zoning in action. It's the result of a very deliberate citywide plan.
Zoning is basically the official rulebook for a community. It's what dictates that you can build houses over here, stores over there, and factories way over on the other side of town.
The whole goal is to create a community that's functional, safe, and, pleasant to live in, where different types of land use don't clash with each other.
And you've probably seen these codes on those city planning notices they post sometimes. They're like the shorthand for the master plan. R1, that means in areas for single-family homes. R3 allows for things like apartments. C is for commercial, M is for manufacturing, you get the idea. Our developer has to build something that fits the zoning code for their specific piece of land, no exceptions.
And it's not just about fitting in with the other buildings. Before the city signs off on everything, the developer usually has to get an environmental impact report done. This is a big study that looks at how the project is going to affect everything, from local wildlife and water runoff to traffic patterns. It's all about making sure the development is done responsibly.
All right, we're almost at the finish line. Let's look at 3 final sets of laws that kind of overlay everything we've already talked about. These are all about ensuring fairness for everyone, safety in the actual construction, and the ultimate power of the government over all land.
I mean, a house isn't a home if you can't even get access to it, right? That's why these fair housing laws are so critical. They exist to make sure that everyone has an equal shot at renting or buying a property. The Unruh and Rumford Acts are specific to California, and the Holden Act goes after discriminatory lending practices, like redlining. But the big one, the one that covers everyone, is the Federal Civil Rights Act. It makes it absolutely illegal to discriminate based on race, period. No exceptions.
Okay, now for a concept that is, well, it's both incredibly powerful and often pretty controversial. Eminent domain. This is basically the ultimate expression of government power over land. What it means is, if the government needs your property for a public project, like a new highway or a school, they can actually force you to sell it.
The key phrase, the one that makes this all legal, is for the public good. Now, the government can't just come in and take the land. The process requires them to pay the owner fair market value for it. But it really highlights this core principle that, in the end, private property rights are always balanced against the needs of the community as a whole.
So there you have it. From police power and map acts all the way to zoning codes and eminent domain, we've seen this incredible complex system of rules that transforms an empty field into a thriving neighborhood. You know, every single law we've talked about is an attempt to strike a balance between the rights of the individual landowner and the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Which kind of leaves us with one big question to think about. Do you think we have that balance right?